political anthropology, and these are the learning objectives for today's class. The first thing is to understand the concepts of political organizations, including leadership, power, authority, influence. These are important concepts, key concepts in this chapter. And we will have a little more, but these are primary concepts. So we'll learn one by one with pertinent examples. Second objective is recall the differences between informal leadership, headman or big man, chieftainship, state. So we will learn about different political organizations. Again, we will learn one by one with examples. Provide examples of how ethnicity, alliances, and factions operate within states. We will learn about how these topics or issues are related with the political aspect of our culture and society. Recognize the operation of political structures within states in colonial and post-colonial settings, including the mobilization of political symbols. So we will be learning the political phenomena in the society. So these are the learning objectives that we'll have in mind while we have today's class. Let's move on to the second page of our slide. And this is about important concepts in political anthropology. I have two slides devoted to discussion of important concepts in political anthropology, and this is the first of the two. First, we need to understand what politics means. And we often compare and contrast politics and government. We will learn about the similarities and differences between politics and government. In our everyday life, in our colloquial conversation, many people love to say, I hate politics. And we have plenty of jokes about politicians, how deceptive they are, and sometimes how stupid they are. I haven't heard of many positive stories about these politicians, and people love to hate politics or politicians, but we need it. We need politics in our society, and we need politicians, actually. We need good politicians, I think. Anyway, politics is defined as the competition for political positions, economic resources, and power. So politics is the way we try to get what we want, such as political position, like president's office, becoming a president or a national assemblyman or a mayor, that political positions, economic resources, that's to be more powerful, to have control over large amount of resources. Sometimes power brings wealth, although there is a huge possibility of corruption in that case. And power. Okay, so it's a competition. I think tomorrow is the day when those candidates for the local election can officially start their campaign. So tomorrow they start, and the election is June 1st, which is Wednesday. That is why we don't have class on the 1st of June, and that means we have this problem with makeup sessions. And we decided, do it in a certain way, which is well explained in detail in the document that I posted on our website. Anyway, it's a political season in Korea. You hear many people on sort of a makeshift podium on a truck, on the back of truck or van, you know, campaigning. So that's politics. They compete for political position in this case. Government is different. It may look similar, but government is the decisions made by those in office, like the president or the mayor or the assemblyman, on behalf of the entire group in carrying out common goals. So you're a mayor of Seoul, you make certain decision for the citizens of Seoul or for Korea because it's the right thing. It will bring positive results to people. And you make this decision because you are in the office, you are the mayor. That's government. So that's governing, as opposed to politics, which is competition to acquire something. Well, having defined these two similar and related concepts, the fact is, oftentimes it's very hard to distinguish one from the other because people will try to uh, make politics look like government when one is in office. For example, well, I'm talking about a hypothetical case. For example, the mayor of Seoul, for example, um, builds beautiful convention center uh, alongside Han River. There are nice places, and Han River is a beautiful, it has beautiful landscape. And he announces a plan to build huge and uh, ultra modern convention center. And he says that that's the decision made for the future of Seoul and future of Korea. Although it costs a lot of money, it will bring in more, bring in the tourists and business travelers. So it will make the whole society more affluent. Well, that is government, right? That is the kind of thing that a mayor is supposed to do. However, some people, especially the opposition party, may argue that that's politics. That's for his re-election, right? That's for politics, for re-election, which is competition for the political position in the future. So whether the decision is a legitimate thing for someone in office, for the whole society in carrying out common goals, or is it from it's motivated by some political intention? That's kind of hard to distinguish. Anyway, by definition, these two are different. I hope many people still remember the importance of the term political economy. I talked about this in the recorded video in the context of economic anthropology. And because politics and economy are closely interrelated, um, and one can be translated or converted into the other. Like political power may bring in economic wealth, although, as I said, it may be a case of corruption. And people with lots of money sometimes want to acquire political power, especially when the person decides to run for public office, political office. We have had quite a few presidential candidates who are from the conglomerate, like from Hyundai. There were two from father and son who ran for presidency in Korea. And in the United States, we also have some cases where extremely rich people ran for and successfully ran for the mayor of New York City, and the presidency, which was not a successful case. Anyway, so political economy, it implies the interpenetration of politics and economy. And we discussed this in economic anthropology as well. Now we move on to comparison, definition and comparison of three important terms in political anthropology. The first one is power, next is authority, and the third, influence. Power is, when it comes to political science or political anthropology, I think power is the most important concept. In Korean, it's translated as 권력, 권력 in politics. What is power? I'm sure that there are many ways to define the concept of power. It's basically it's the ability to make people do things in your way. You can order people around. That is when you have power. So power is the ability to command. Command is important. Keyword here. Command others to do certain things and to get compliance from them. Get compliance. They have to take your order and do as you wish. So that's power. Authority is institutionalized power. It's formal, it's official. Okay? There is a recognized position or office, the occupant of which can issue commands that must be obeyed. Position or office, like the president or commander in chief, head. And you can issue commands and people should obey. What happens if you don't obey the order or command? You may be fired or you may be put into prison in some cases. So authority is quite serious kind of power. It's institutionalized. There are law that may support this authority, and obedience is mandatory. Influence is quite different. It's the ability to persuade others to follow one's lead. Persuade is keyword. You talk people into do something in your way. So on surface, influence may not look very powerful. Sometimes you use very soft words and persuade and make them do things in the way you want. However, influence is not necessarily less powerful than power or authority. No, influence can be quite powerful. Let's think about housewives who are mothers in patriarchal society. Let's take an example of Korean society. I'm not sure how patriarchal Korean society is now. Contemporary Korean society, I think, has changed a lot from the Joseon Dynasty patriarchy. So we have achieved some gender equality, I think, in Korean society. Certainly, it is different from the way people lived in late Joseon Dynasty. However, we still inherit father's surname. We inherit property. In most cases, we inherit property through father's line. And fathers, more often, fathers make larger contribution to household economy. They go out and earn money. Although nowadays, two-income families are frequently found in contemporary Korea. Anyway, the housewife or the mother in the family may look not as powerful as the father. Father is the breadwinner, and father seems to make important decisions at home. However, if you look closely, and this was found very similar in Japanese society by anthropologists, actually women in the family uh, can wield a large amount of influence. They talk to the family members, their husband and their children, and they can get their way. They can persuade their children to things in this way or that way. Sometimes, children feel guilty because they think mothers sacrifice and mothers are doing their best to for the family, so they have to listen to the mother. That's influence also. So it's the ability to persuade others in that case, the family members to follow one's lead. So, okay, power, authority, and influence are different in very important aspects. And influence is not necessarily weaker than others, okay, depending on the context. Let's move on to the next one. Slide number 3, political organizations. In economic anthropology, we learned economic organizations. If you haven't watched the video, you can check it out later. In political anthropology, we try to understand how a society is organized politically. If we focus on the political aspect, how does society look? And we can classify different kinds of political organizations depending on the kind of leadership found in each society. And here, um, like our textbook provides explanations on political organizations, I introduce 5 different types of political organizations, from informal leadership, band organization, big man structure, chieftainship, and state. One important thing to remember is that these are not evolutionary sequence. These types of political organizations are not to be understood as stages in unilinear evolution, meaning that all societies go through these 5 stages. It's not like that. Different kinds of political organizations may be found in the same society, and I will provide some examples of such. First, let's start with the most simple kind of political organization, which is informal leadership. Informal leadership is the kind of leadership that is not found all the time. The society where informal leadership exists looks quite egalitarian. Everybody is equal. And when necessary, informal leadership appears. So leadership is intermittent. I said that when it's necessary. This kind of leadership is found among some hunter-gatherer societies. This among human societies, mostly hunter-gatherer societies are quite egalitarian, because hunting and gathering means that you take things that you need. You take your food from nature. And many of these societies do not store lots of things. So you basically get things that you need from nature when you need. And for hunting, you hunt a big game animal. You take something for you and your family, and for the rest of it, you have the strategy of distribution, as we learned in the previous chapter. Because you have to share, uh, because things are not very stable. Today, you have hunted a big game animal. You have plenty, more than enough for your own consumption. But maybe for the next 2 weeks, you cannot hunt anything. You cannot starve. So, by distributing the surplus, you can expect some help from your neighbors. So, these hunting and gathering societies are more egalitarian than agricultural societies, where storing grains or storing other things and accumulating wealth is found. So, in this kind of egalitarian society, in ordinary times, things look pretty equal. However, when they go out on a hunting trip, which may take several days, there are people who are much more knowledgeable about animal behavior. They can trace animals much better. They understand how animals behave. They know how to hunt and capture, game animals. So people have to listen to them. They become leaders. So on a hunting trip consisting 5 members, there is a leader who is known to be really good hunter. And during those hunting trip for several days, people listen to him. Usually hunting trip is made up of men. And during the trip, he directs which way to go. He decides whether the footprints of the animals are fresh or not, how to follow, where to stop, when to give up. And after they hunt, they come back and the hunting group is disbanded and the leadership is gone. So it's only for those occasions when this kind of leadership is necessary. That is why it's written intermittent leadership. Okay, that's the first one. It's the least formal and official leadership. Band organization is a little more organized because it has fixed membership. In our textbook, you can find more detailed explanation and description of this different kind of political organization. Fixed membership. So you know which group you belong to all the time. But that doesn't mean that your group operates all the time. You just have a membership, but at a given time, like a religiously important moment, like a vernal equinox, Chunbun in Korea, many Native Americans, native nations in North America have some kind of religious ritual. That's their part of their tradition. So you know which nation, what they call nation. It's a group you belong to, and you know that at certain point, certain day of the year, you have to be at certain location, celebrate the solidarity and worship, and you just uh, reinforce your identity as a group member. This is also found among hunter-gatherers, and you know, because agricultural societies have fixed residency, uh, you your membership is much more solid and rigid. But for hunter-gatherers and pastoralists, because they move around, you may have band organization. Okay, and uh, those of you who have watched a movie called Dances with Wolves, it's an old movie now. It's been about, I don't know, 30 years with Kevin Costner and others in the movie. And in that movie, you see lots of buffaloes moving, and you have this religious ritual of Native Americans, and that's band organization. Those people who gathered in a particular valley, I think to celebrate the vernal equinox, spring equinox. Okay, that's band organization. The next two political organizations, big man structure and chieftainship, need to be explained um, next to each other because they are similar, but they have important differences. And these kind of political organizations are also found in around us, actually, in our society. And let me explain this. Big man structure has clearly defined leadership. People know who the big man is in a group of people. It's based on people, not territory. So, in a group of people, you have a big man. Well, it could be, but the title can be, anything. But here we have direct translation of the word used in the area of among the island societies in Melanesia on the Pacific. It's an achieved status, meaning that it's based on personal qualifications and individual ability. So you have to prove yourself to be a big man, and you're always contested and threatened by other people who aspire to be big men. So if they prove to be better than you and people recognize that that person is better than you, that person becomes the new big man and you are not anymore. So it's an achieved status, and personal qualifications and individual ability are important. Compared to that, chieftainship is a lot more like kingdom or monarchy. It has fixed positions of rank, and it's run by the method of succession, inherited. Not necessarily father to son or uncle to nephew in direct lines, but you have to be born into the right family line. So that's ascribed. Ascribed is the opposite concept of achieved. So it's an ascribed uh, status based on kinship. And you often find cases of chieftainship in Polynesia. And we will have a map on the next page of our slide. State. Well, we know what state is because all of us live under the system of state as the political organization. It has larger scale, more elaborate, territorially based. By the way, chieftainship is also territorially based. It's you have a boundary of territory and there is a chief. If in the big man structure, I said that other people may try to become big men by proving their ability. In chieftainship, in the territory, if someone tries to become the chief or declare oneself as the chief, it's an act of treason. You will be heavily punished. So, because this is territorially based, so in one bounded territory, there's one chief. Like there is one king in a kingdom. A state is larger scale, more elaborate, territorially based, and social stratification usually exists, like rulers, aristocrats, commoners, and various low status groups. And again, not all societies evolve going through these as stages. These are just different types of political organizations. We find this kind of political organizations around us, especially big man structure. We find big man structure in organized crimes, such as yakuza in Japan, or organized 조직, organized crime in Korean society, or mafia. Mafia, they have this kind of big man structure. They have to prove themselves to be the boss. And if someone accumulates more power by being more generous to others, by being more fierce, more smart, then he's the new boss. So big man structure is found in other, cases. We are not just talking about a village or society. We can talk about many different groups where we find this kind of political organization. Let's move on to the next slide, which is map of Melanesia, Polynesia, and Micronesia. Because in this chapter, we have the cases from this region. I decided to include this map. This is the map of South Pacific, mostly, but north of the equator, we have Micronesia as well. And of course, on your lower left hand corner, you see Australia and New Zealand as well. So for these island countries on the Pacific, Australia is a very significant big country. New Zealand is also to a little lesser degree. So elites, many members of the elites of these island societies study abroad in Australia. Some of them attend colleges in Australia or graduate schools and come back to their country to take, political positions or other positions. So you meet many, graduates of Australian National University or other, universities in Australia. Anyway, to the northeast side of Australia, you see Papua New Guinea, which is one of the larger countries in this region with a big population. You also see New Caledonia and Vanuatu and Fiji. Fiji is another leader country among these island countries. For example, for Korea, Fiji is one of the strategically important countries, and there is a Korean embassy in Fiji. And before COVID-19, Korean Air used to fly to the capital of Fiji, Suva, 3 times a week. They had pretty large plane to fly to Suva, Fiji. And this shows the importance of Fiji as one of the central locations in the world where Korean government is trying to establish and maintain presence, diplomatic presence and otherwise. And Korean ambassador to Fiji serves for other island countries nearby, like Tonga, Nauru, Tuvalu, and so forth. Right now, there are no direct flights to Suva, Fiji, but I think they will resume it. And Korea is one of two Asian countries which have direct flight to Fiji. So as you can see, not even Japan, you know. So Japanese people and Chinese people, quite a few of them come to Incheon Airport to go to Fiji. Anyway, in these Melanesian islands countries, you see big man structure. However, it's not as clear cut as it may sound. On some bigger island countries like Fiji and Papua New Guinea, you have chieftainship. And I will introduce one case of such chieftainship from Melanesia. In Polynesia, which include Cook Island and Samoa, and Hawaii also is classified as Polynesia and Samoa. Here you have more chieftainship, more elaborate and more hierarchical political organization. Okay, so remember this map, and we will move on to the next slide to introduce the case. This was in Fiji. Fiji belongs to Melanesia, but it's close to Polynesia. And Fiji is pretty hierarchical society with chiefs in traditional villages. As an outsider, I had to abide by the local cultural rules regarding political hierarchy and the chieftainship. So, for example, when I entered the traditional village to work on the cultural heritage with local people, I had to pay respect to the chief and at the town hall. Chief came to the town hall to meet me, and the rituals rituals that needed to be held for the meeting with the chief had lots of etiquettes and manners that I had to obey, such as I couldn't position my body higher than the chief. That was the rule. And the chief was sitting on a chair at the center of the town hall, and I had to basically kneel kneel on the floor because I couldn't stand up. I'm not tall, but the chief was sitting on a chair, and I had to lower my body as low as possible. So I had to basically kneel on the floor, and I had to move myself in in that posture. So that was something, I had to learn very quickly. But to work with the local people, work in the local community, I needed someone who really understood the local political organization. That was why UNESCO sent me together with Chief Anthony, who is standing in the photo, the left hand photo. He's Anthony Parak. He's from Papua New Guinea, which is, a totally different country and society. But he understands. He understands this political organization, how to work with community. So he is also UNESCO certified facilitator, and I'm also a UNESCO certified facilitator. So they usually send two facilitators together to work with local people. So I was very fortunate to have Chief Anthony. Well, he's from a chief family. He's not a currently. At the time we did the workshop in Fiji, he was not the chief, but he was from the chief's family, and he chances there were very high probability that he would become the next chief. That is why we called him Chief Anthony. And since it's been several years since we had this workshop, Chief Anthony might have become the real chief in his community in Papua New Guinea. But he was really knowledgeable, and I benefited from his cultural knowledge on the political organization because it was very important to understand how to approach the community members and what kind of rules that I had to abide by. Anyway, this is an example of chieftainship. And in the right hand, on your right hand side, there is a photo of me with four other people. This gentleman sitting, this older gentleman who is sitting next to me is from Nauru, another island country on the Pacific. And he came to this workshop to learn what is going on in UNESCO workshops, and he wanted to work in his own country, Nauru, on cultural heritage. So he participated. He is a folklorist, 민속 학자 in Korean. So we worked together, and he tried to learn the UNESCO um, convention and UNESCO system for cultural heritage safeguarding. Anyway, a very good example of a very pertinent example of chieftainship. So this is another evidence that not all Melanesian societies have um, bigman structure. In this case, we've seen chieftainship in Fiji and Papua New Guinea. Okay, we are having the first hour class a little longer than usual. The second part will be shorter than usual. But I need to introduce this video that we will watch. And we have two videos for today's class, and this is the first one. And this one shows how local cultures have different kind of legal system, local court system, to take care of the local issues. And this court and this legal system are recognized under the country's national law. And the country, in this case, happens to be Spain. So this video is about the irrigators tribunals. Irrigator, you know irrigation, right? The use and management of water in agriculture. That's irrigation, right? Tribunals, it's court, legal system. Irrigators tribunals of the Spanish Mediterranean coast. It's the Mediterranean side of Spain. The Council of Wise Men of the Plain of Murcia, that's one tribunal, and the Water Tribunal of the Plain of Valencia, Spain, that's another. And this is basically the kind of legal court to take care of the water conflict. You know, for agriculture, water is essential, right? Very important. And the farmers sometimes have conflicts for the use of water, and it's a very critical issue. So there might be some very severe disputes, and they have specific legal court to take care of those issues, and they have long history, and locally they have great authority. Everybody should listen to the decision. So the irrigators tribunals of the Spanish Mediterranean coast are traditional law courts for water management that date back to the Al-Andalus period, which is 9th to 13th centuries. Very, very old. The two main tribunals, whose name I just introduced, are recognized under Spanish law. So this is a very interesting case where under the national law, there are some locally, particular legal system, inspiring authority and respect. Notice the word authority here. Okay, it's institutionalized, so this is a really good example of authority. These two courts, whose members are elected democratically, settle disputes orally in a swift, transparent, and impartial manner. You will see, you will observe the kind of decision making and how people react and what kind of authority they exude in the way they make decisions and announce. In addition to their legal role, the irrigators tribunals play a key part in the communities of which they are a visible symbol, as apparent from the rites performed, very, very austere kind of atmosphere when judgments are handed down, and the fact that the tribunals often feature in local iconography. So they provide cohesion among traditional communities because they know that they have to listen to the judgment made at this court, and this kind of legal system binds people to abide by the same rules. In a way, they are cultural rules, so that contributes to the cohesion among the traditional communities. And the courts are long-standing repositories of local and regional identities and are of special significance to local inhabitants. So while you watch this video, these are the questions that are relevant, and I would like you to think about this. Of course, the concepts of power and authority. Okay, you will see, how they are found in actual cases. What are the strengths of this kind of court system based on its cultural context? You will have plenty of information in this regard. State law and local customary law. Under the Spanish state law and local customary law, so legal pluralism. Law is a system of conflict resolution and criminalization practice, and legal pluralism means that the coexistence of indigenous and post-colonial systems of law. So there is this state level, modern, contemporary law, but in some subsectors of the society, you have indigenous legal system. In some cases, they are religious law based on religion, or in this case, this particular system is for water management and resolving disputes over water use. So let me copy this information, link information onto the chatting board. And during the break, I will take care of the attendance issue. Several people have left chatting message, so I'll take care of them. And I would like you to come back by 4:17.